Please, I will pay you. Don't harm my father.
You're mine until I say you're not.
Don't worry, babes. He's only using you for now. He does this to all of your kind. I'm tired of you neglecting me while your other women scream in your bed.
Are you jealous of them?
Amara was wiping down the last table when the black SUVs arrived. 3 of them, sleek and predatory, pulling up outside Bennett's bakery like sharks circling wounded prey. Her father Marcus dropped the cash register drawer, coins scattering across the floor in a sound that seemed too loud in the sudden silence. "Dad?" Amara's cloth stilled against the table surface. He didn't answer. His face had gone gray, eyes fixed on the door as the first man stepped through. Then another. Then 3 more, fanning out across the small bakery like they owned it. They wore expensive suits, moved with the kind of confidence that came from never hearing the word no. But it was the last man who made Amara's breath catch. Jin Hyunwoo stepped through the doorway like he was entering a throne room, not a failing bakery in Busan. Tall, impossibly handsome, with long dark hair pulled back from a face that could have been carved from marble. His eyes swept the room with cold assessment before landing on her father. "Mr. Bennett." His voice was smooth, almost pleasant. "I believe we had an appointment." Marcus's hands shook. "Mr. Choi, please, I just need a little more time." "Time." Jin walked further into the bakery, his men moving with him like shadows. "I gave you 8 months. That seems like quite a bit of time, wouldn't you say?" If you're enjoying this story so far, hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this. Amara stepped forward before she could stop herself. "What's going on?" Jin's gaze shifted to her, and she felt the weight of it like a physical touch. His eyes moved over her face, down her body, assessing her the same way he'd assessed the bakery. Slowly, thoroughly, like he was calculating her worth down to the last cent. "Your father owes me 12 million won," Jin said, still looking at her. "The original loan was 7 million. Interest has been accumulating. 12 million won. Nearly $9,000. Amara felt the number hit her like a fist to the stomach. "We don't have that kind of money," she said. "I'm aware." Jin finally looked away from her, back to Marcus. "Which is why we're here to discuss alternative payment methods." One of Jin's men moved toward the display case. He pulled out a baseball bat from inside his jacket, and Amara's heart lurched. "Please," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "Please, not the bakery. It's all I have." "You should have thought of that before you borrowed money you couldn't repay." Jin nodded once, and the man swung. Glass exploded. The display case shattered, pastries and broken glass cascading to the floor. Amara jumped forward, but another man grabbed her arm, holding her back as they destroyed everything her father had built. The coffee machine, the chairs, the ovens. "Stop!" Amara's voice cracked. "Stop it, please!" Jin held up one hand, and immediately the destruction ceased. The silence that followed was worse than the violence. He turned to face her fully, and Amara saw something flicker in his eyes. Interest, maybe. Or hunger. "You want me to stop?" he asked softly. "Yes, please." "What will you give me in exchange?" The question hung in the air between them. Amara looked at her father, at his defeated posture, at the destroyed bakery that represented 5 years of his life. She thought about the loan sharks who had come before, the threats that kept escalating, the fear that had become their constant companion. She looked back at Jin, at his perfect face and cold eyes, and made a decision that would change everything. "Me," she said. "I'll give you me." Jin's expression didn't change, but something shifted in the air around him. He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, expensive and dark, close enough to see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes. "You?" His voice dropped lower. And what exactly do you think you're worth? 12,000,001, whatever it takes to clear his debt. Amara, no. Marcus tried to step forward, but one of Jin's men blocked him. You can't do this. I can. She kept her eyes on Jin, refusing to look away even though every instinct screamed at her to run. I will. Jin circled her slowly, like a predator evaluating prey. She could feel his gaze on her back, her shoulders, the curve of her neck. When he completed the circle and stood in front of her again, his lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. You have no idea what you're offering, he said. Then tell me. If I accept this, you belong to me, completely. You'll live where I say, do what I say, be available whenever I want you. He leaned in, his breath warm against her ear. You'll have no freedom, no choices, no life beyond what I allow. Is your father's debt worth that? Amara's hands clenched into fists at her sides. Every cell in her body screamed at her to say no, to find another way, to run. But she looked at her father's face and saw 22 years of love, of sacrifice, of bedtime stories and proud smiles at her graduation. Yes, she whispered. Jin straightened, studying her face for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Prepare the guest room, he said into it. We have a new arrival. He hung up and looked at Marcus. You have 1 week to close the bakery and disappear. If I see you again, or if you try to contact your daughter, our deal is void and your debt triples. Understood? Marcus nodded, tears streaming down his face. Amara. Jin's voice was soft, almost gentle, which somehow made it more terrifying. You have 1 hour to pack whatever you can carry in a single bag. My men will wait outside. Can I say goodbye to my father? You have 5 minutes, starting now. Jin walked out, his men following like a dark tide receding. The moment they were gone, Marcus grabbed Amara's hands. Baby girl, you can't do this. Let me figure something else out. There's nothing else, Dad. Amara squeezed his hands, memorizing the feel of them. You know that. I'll go to the police. And tell them what? That you borrowed money from a loan shark and can't pay it back? They won't help us. You know they won't. She pulled him into a hug, breathing in the familiar smell of flour and coffee that always clung to his clothes. I'll be okay. I promise. I'm so sorry, he sobbed into her hair. I'm so sorry, baby. I never meant for any of this to happen. I know, Dad. I know. The 5 minutes passed too quickly. When Jin's men came back inside, Amara had to physically pull away from her father. She ran upstairs to the small apartment above the bakery, threw clothes and toiletries into a duffel bag, with shaking hands, and tried not to think about what she'd just done. When she came back down, Jin was waiting by one of the SUVs. He opened the back door himself, a mockery of gentlemanly behavior. After you, he said. Amara climbed in, and he slid in beside her. The door closed with a solid thunk that sounded like a cell door locking. As they pulled away, she looked back at the bakery, at her father standing in the doorway, and wondered if she'd ever see him again. Look at me, Jin said. She turned to find him watching her with an unreadable expression. I want to make sure you understand what you've agreed to, he said. This isn't a job. This isn't a loan you can work off with time and effort. You are now mine in every sense of the word until I decide otherwise. Your body, your time, your choices, all belong to me now. If you try to run, I'll find you, and the consequences will be severe. Not just for you, but for your father. Do you understand? Amara's throat was so tight she could barely speak. Yes. Say it. I understand. I belong to you now. Something flashed in his eyes, dark and satisfied. Good girl. The drive to his home took 40 minutes, winding up into the hills above Busan, until they reached a modern villa perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean. It was beautiful, in a cold, impersonal way, all glass and steel and sharp angles, nothing like the warm, cluttered space above the bakery. A woman in her 50s met them at the door, her expression professionally neutral. "Mrs. Yoon, this is Amara," Jin said. "Show her to the guest room and explain the rules." He walked away without another word, disappearing into the depths of the villa. Mrs. Yoon gestured for Amara to follow. The guest room was larger than her entire apartment above the bakery. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the ocean. The bed was enormous and pristine white, and everything looked like it, had never been touched by human hands. Mrs. Yoon handed her a small printed card. "The rules," she said simply. Amara read them, each line making her stomach sink further. Complete obedience to Mr. Choi at all times. Availability at his discretion, day or night. No contact with anyone from your previous life. You remain here until Mr. Choi releases you. "Your phone," Mrs. Yoon said, holding out her hand. Amara pulled it from her pocket with numb fingers. Mrs. Yoon took it and left without another word, the door closing with a soft click that somehow sounded final. Amara walked to the window, looking out at the ocean far below. The water was dark and churning, reflecting the storm clouds gathering on the horizon. She pressed her palm against the cold glass and tried to remember why she'd thought this was a good idea. The first 3 days passed in a blur of isolation. Mrs. Yoon brought meals at precise times, always perfectly prepared, always in complete silence. Amara saw Jin exactly once, from across the villa's main living area. He was on his phone, speaking rapid Korean to someone, and he looked right through her like she didn't exist, like she was furniture. Comment below what you think will happen next. On the 4th night, Amara heard voices downstairs, a woman's laugh, high and musical. She shouldn't have looked. She should have stayed in her room like the good little prisoner she was supposed to be. But something drew her to the top of the stairs, and she looked down into the living area below. Jin was there, dressed casually in black pants and a white shirt, his long hair loose around his shoulders. And draped over him was one of the most beautiful women Amara had ever seen. Tall, elegant, with perfect skin and a designer dress that probably cost more than the bakery's monthly rent. The woman, Sarah, kissed Jin's neck, and he let her. His hand slid up her thigh, and Amara felt something sharp and painful twist in her chest. Jealousy. She was jealous. The realization horrified her. She had no right to feel jealous. Jin wasn't hers. She wasn't his girlfriend or his lover. She was property, a debt paid in flesh, nothing more. But watching another woman touch him, seeing him respond, made something inside her crack open. She went back to her room and didn't sleep that night. She heard them, heard the sounds that drifted up from wherever Jin had taken Sarah, and each sound felt like a knife to her ribs. The pattern continued. Different women, different nights, but always the same message. You don't matter. By the 10th day, Amara felt like she was disappearing. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the girl staring back. When had her eyes become so hollow? When had she started to fade? That night, she made a decision. If she was going to survive this, she needed to be seen. Really seen. Not just acknowledged as a piece of furniture that happened to eat food. She waited until she heard Jin's office door close around 10 p.m. Then she walked downstairs, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst through her ribs. She didn't knock. She just opened the door and stepped inside. Jin looked up from his desk, surprise flickering across his face before it smoothed into that familiar cold mask. "I didn't call for you," he said. "I know." Amara's voice shook, but she forced herself to keep talking. "I need to know why you took me if you were just going to ignore me." "Excuse me?" "You heard me." She stepped further into the room, even though every instinct screamed at her to run. If I'm just a debt payment, then let me work it off. Give me something to do. Let me clean, cook, anything. But don't make me disappear. Don't make me nothing. Jin leaned back in his chair, studying her with those dark, unreadable eyes. You think you've been invisible? Haven't I? He stood, moving around the desk, with that predatory grace that made her breath catch. You think I haven't noticed you wandering around like a ghost? That I haven't heard you crying at night? That I don't know exactly what you look like when you watch me with other women? Heat flooded Amara's face. You knew I was watching? Of course I knew. He stepped closer, backing her against the door. I wanted you to watch. I wanted you to see, to feel, to break. Why? Because I don't want an obedient servant, Amara. His voice dropped to a whisper as he braced one hand on the door beside her head. I don't want someone who obeys out of fear or obligation. I want you desperate, wanting, begging for what only I can give you. Her breath came faster. He was so close she could feel the heat radiating from his body, could see the pulse beating in his throat. That's cruel. Yes. His eyes dropped to her lips. It is. But you came here tonight because it worked, didn't it? You couldn't stay away anymore. I came because I refused to disappear. You came because you want me to see you, to touch you, to make you feel something other than invisible. His free hand came up, fingers trailing along her jaw with devastating gentleness. Admit it. Amara's heart was thunder in her chest. She should push him away. She should be horrified, disgusted, furious at his manipulation. But instead, all she could think about was how his fingers felt against her skin, how his eyes had turned molten, how badly she wanted him to close that last inch between them. I hate you, she whispered. I know. His thumb brushed across her lower lip. But you want me anyway, don't you? She closed her eyes, unable to look at him while she said it. Yes. God help me. Yes. His sharp intake of breath was the only warning she got before his mouth crashed down on hers. The kiss was nothing like Amara had imagined. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was consuming, demanding, like he was trying to devour every piece of her resistance. His hand slid into her hair, tilting her head back, and she gasped against his mouth. He took the opportunity to deepen the kiss, his tongue sliding against hers in a way that made her knees weak. She should stop this. She should push him away, remind herself that this was exactly what he wanted, that she was playing right into his manipulative hands. But her body had other ideas. Her hands found his chest, feeling the hard muscle beneath his shirt, and instead of pushing him away, she pulled him closer. Jin made a sound low in his throat, something between a growl and a groan. He broke the kiss only to trail his lips down her neck, finding spots that made her gasp and arch against him. Tell me to stop, he murmured against her skin. Tell me you don't want this. I can't. The words came out broken, desperate. I hate that I can't. He pulled back, just enough to look at her, and the heat in his eyes nearly undid her. I've been thinking about this since the moment you offered yourself to me in that bakery. Do you know how hard it's been to stay away? You didn't look like you were struggling when you were with those other women. Something dark flashed across his face. Jealous? Yes. There was no point lying now. Yes, I was jealous. I hated every second of it. Good. He kissed her again, harder this time, and she felt him smile against her lips. That was the point. You're terrible, she breathed. I know. His hands slid down her sides, mapping her curves through her clothes. But you want me anyway. Before she could respond, he swept her up into his arms, carrying her across the office to the leather couch against the wall. He laid her down with surprising gentleness, then knelt beside her, his hand cupping her face. Last chance, he said softly. We cross this line. There's no going back. You'll be mine in every way. Amara looked up at him, at this beautiful, terrible man who had bought her like property and then broken her down piece by piece. She should say no. She should remember her dignity, her self-respect, all the things she'd lost the moment she stepped into his SUV. Instead, she reached up and pulled him down to her. What happened next was a blur of desperate touches and whispered words. Jin's hands knew exactly where to touch, how to make her gasp and arch and beg for more. He took his time, learning every inch of her skin, every sound she made, cataloging what made her tremble. When they finally came together, it was with an intensity that left Amara shaking. Jin's eyes never left hers, holding her gaze like he was trying to see into her soul. And maybe he was. Maybe he'd already seen everything, every broken piece, every desperate want. Afterward, they lay tangled together on the couch, Amara's head on Jin's chest, listening to his heartbeat slow. His fingers traced lazy patterns on her shoulder, and for a moment, she let herself pretend this was normal. That she was here because she wanted to be, not because of debt and desperation. What are you thinking? Jin's voice rumbled through his chest. That I don't know who I am anymore. His hand stilled. What do you mean? 3 weeks ago, I was a girl who worked in her father's bakery. I had plans. I was going to save money, maybe go to university, live a normal life. She turned her head to look at him. Now I'm someone who just slept with the man who bought her, someone who wanted it, who still wants it. I don't recognize myself. Jin was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. People think power is about control, about making others do what you want. But real power is making them want what you want, making them choose you even when they shouldn't. Is that what this is to you? Power? At first, maybe. His fingers resumed their path along her shoulder. But you're not what I expected, Amara Bennett. What did you expect? Fear, tears, maybe anger. Not this. He gestured vaguely at them. Not someone who would walk into my office and demand to be seen. I'm full of surprises. You are. He shifted, pulling her more fully against him. Stay here tonight. In my room, not the guest room. It wasn't a question, but Amara found herself nodding anyway. She was too tired to fight, too wrung out to care about the implications. She'd already given him everything else. What was one more surrender? They moved to Jin's bedroom, a massive space done in dark grays and blacks with those same floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean. The bed was enormous, the sheets impossibly soft, and when Jin pulled her against him, Amara let herself sink into the warmth of his body. She woke alone. Morning light streamed through the windows, turning the ocean beyond into a sheet of silver. For one blissful moment, Amara forgot where she was, forgot everything that had happened. Then reality crashed back, and she sat up, looking around the empty room, a note on the nightstand in sharp, masculine handwriting. Had business to attend to. Mrs. Yoon will bring breakfast. Stay in the room. Even his notes were commands. Amara crumpled the paper in her fist, then immediately smoothed it out again. What was she doing? What had she done? Mrs. Yoon arrived 30 minutes later with a breakfast tray, her expression as neutral as ever. But Amara thought she saw something flicker in the older woman's eyes. Pity, maybe. Or disapproval. Mrs. Yoon, Amara said before she could leave, can I ask you something? The housekeeper paused. You may ask. How long have you worked for Mr. Choi? 5 years. Have there been others? Other women who stayed here? Mrs. Yoon's expression didn't change. That's not my place to discuss. She turned to leave. Please, I just need to know if I'm fooling myself. The older woman stopped at the door, her back to Amara. Mr. Choi has never brought anyone to live here before. Whatever that means, you'll have to decide for yourself. She left, and Amara sat with that information, trying to figure out if it made things better or worse. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see how this story ends. The day stretched endlessly. Amara showered, changed into fresh clothes from the wardrobe that had mysteriously appeared filled with things in her size, and stood at the window watching the ocean. She felt like she was floating outside her own body, watching herself make choices that didn't make sense. She heard the front door open around 3 p.m, followed by voices. Jin's deep rumble and a woman's laugh. That same musical laugh from before. Amara's stomach dropped. She should stay in the room like Jin had instructed. She should pretend she didn't hear anything, didn't care. But her feet were already moving, carrying her to the door, into the hallway, to the top of the stairs. Sarah stood in the entryway, immaculate in a cream-colored dress, her arms around Jin's neck. And Jin, he wasn't pushing her away. He was standing there, letting her touch him, his expression unreadable. Something inside Amara shattered. All the warmth from last night, all the whispered words and gentle touches, suddenly felt like lies. She'd been such a fool. Jin. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. He looked up, and she saw surprise flash across his face. Sarah turned too, her perfect eyebrows rising. "Oh," Sarah said, her tone light but cutting. "You must be the new girl. Jin didn't mention you were still here." "Still here?" Amara descended the stairs, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. "I live here." Sarah's laugh was like breaking glass. "Sweetie, no one lives here. Not permanently. Jin doesn't do permanent." "Sarah?" Jin's voice held a warning. "What? I'm just being honest." Sarah finally released Jin, turning her full attention to Amara. "Let me guess. He made you feel special? Made you think you were different?" "Oh, honey, we've all been there." Amara looked at Jin. "Is that true?" "Sarah, leave," Jin said flatly. "But we had plans." "Now." The single word cracked like a whip. Sarah's expression hardened, but she grabbed her purse and walked out without another word. The door closed behind her with a decisive click. Amara and Jin stared at each other across the expanse of the living room. The silence felt heavy, suffocating. "You told me to stay in the room," Amara said finally. "You should have listened." "Why? So I wouldn't see that last night meant nothing? That I'm just another woman in a long line of women who've warmed your bed?" Jin's jaw tightened. "It's not that simple." "Then explain it to me." Amara descended the rest of the stairs, closing the distance between them. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks pretty simple. You wanted me to want you, and now that you've had me, you're already moving on to the next." "That's not what's happening." "No? Then why was she here? Why was she touching you?" "Because this is my life, Amara." His voice rose, frustration bleeding through his usual control. "This is who I am. I have business associates, social obligations, a world that existed long before you walked into it. Sarah is part of that world." "And what am I?" The question hung between them. Jin ran a hand through his hair, and for the first time, he looked uncertain. "I don't know," he admitted. "I don't know what you are." The honesty of it hurt worse than any lie. At least that's the truth. "What do you want me to say? That you've changed everything? That one night with you has made me forget everyone else?" He stepped closer, his eyes intense. "Because it hasn't. But it did make me realize that I don't want to share you. The thought of another man touching you, looking at you, makes me want to destroy things. That's not love. That's possession." "I never claimed it was love." His hand came up, cupping her face with surprising gentleness. "I claimed you. There's a difference." Amara closed her eyes, feeling tears threaten. This is so messed up. Yes. His thumb brushed across her cheek. But you knew that going in. I thought I could handle it. I thought if I just survived, I could get through this and come out the other side intact. She opened her eyes, looking up at him. But I'm not going to, am I? You're going to break me into pieces. Jin's expression shifted, something almost like pain flickering across his features. I don't want to break you. Then what do you want? I want you to choose me. Not because of the debt, not because you're trapped here, but because you want to be here. With me. How can I choose when I don't have any other options? You always have options, Amara. He released her, stepping back. You could run. You could fight me. You could shut down completely and become the empty shell I was trying to create. But you haven't. You fought back at every turn, demanded to be seen, refused to disappear. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You're stronger than you think. I don't feel strong. I feel lost. Then let me be honest with you. Jin sat on the arm of the couch, and suddenly he looked tired. I built my life on control, on knowing exactly what I want and how to get it. And then you offered yourself in that bakery, and I thought I knew exactly what I was getting. A frightened girl I could mold into whatever I wanted. But you're not what I expected. You're sharp and fierce, and you see right through my games. And last night... He paused, his eyes meeting hers. Last night wasn't just about power. It was real, at least for me. And that terrifies me. Amara sank onto the couch, processing his words. What does that mean for us? I don't know. I've never done this before. Never wanted someone to stay, not really. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. But I want you to stay. Not as property, not as a debt payment. Just stay. And Sarah and all the others? Gone, if that's what you need. Just like that? Just like that. His eyes were dark, serious. But I need you to understand something. My world is dangerous. The people I deal with, the things I do, none of it is safe or clean or good. If you stay, really stay, you'll be part of that. You'll see things you can't unsee. There's no going back to the girl in the bakery. I think that girl is already gone. Maybe. Or maybe she's just evolving into someone stronger. He stood, closing the distance between them again. So what do you choose, Amara? Do you want to stay and figure out what this is between us? Or do I release you from the debt and let you walk away? The offer hung in the air like something precious and dangerous. Freedom. She could be free. She could go back to her father, rebuild their life, pretend none of this had ever happened. Except she couldn't pretend. She would always know what it felt like to be in Jin's arms, to see beyond his cold exterior to the complicated, damaged man underneath. She would always wonder what might have happened if she'd been brave enough to stay. I hate you, she said softly. I know. You manipulated me, broke me down, played with my emotions like they were toys. Yes. And I should walk away. I should take your offer and never look back. You should. Amara stood, closing the final distance between them until they were chest to chest. But I'm not going to. Jin's breath caught. Why? Because I want to see what happens next. Because I'm tired of surviving and I want to live, even if it's messy and complicated and probably going to hurt. She looked up at him, letting him see everything she felt. Because when you look at me, I feel real. And I haven't felt real in a very long time. His hands came up, framing her face with a tenderness that made her chest ache. You're sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. He kissed her then, soft and sweet, and nothing like the desperate passion of the night before. This was a promise, a beginning, the first page of a story they were writing together without knowing how it would end. When they broke apart, Jin rested his forehead against hers. I can't promise you, easy. I can't promise you safe. I don't want easy. I want real. Then we'll figure out real together. Outside, storm clouds gathered over the ocean, dark and heavy with the promise of rain. But inside the villa, wrapped in Jin's arms, Amara felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Dangerous, fragile, foolish hope. She knew there would be more obstacles, more moments of doubt, more times when she questioned every choice that had led her here. Jin's world was brutal and unforgiving, and she was choosing to step into it with her eyes open. But she was also choosing herself, choosing to be seen, to be wanted, to be something more than a debt or a sacrifice or a frightened girl hiding in a bakery. What happens now? She asked. Jin smiled, really smiled, and it transformed his face into something almost boyish. Now we make our own rules. I like the sound of that. Good, because the first rule is that you're mine and I'm yours. Equal claim, equal choice. That's very different from the original rules. The original rules were garbage. He pulled her toward the stairs. Come on, let's start over. Where are we going? To burn that stupid card Mrs. Yoon gave you. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. Amara laughed, the sound surprising her with its genuine joy. Maybe this was insane. Maybe she was making a terrible mistake. But it was her mistake to make, her choice, her life. And for the first time since the SUVs pulled up outside the bakery, she felt like she had a future worth fighting for. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button, drop a comment below telling me what you thought, and like this video. Your support means everything and helps me create more content like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.